I never thought I'd be navigating life as a single mother at 33. But here I am, Nina, sitting at my kitchen table at 6:45 a.m., staring at the blinking numbers on the coffee maker. My 7-year-old daughter, Lily, is in the next room, struggling with her shoelaces. "Mom, these laces are impossible," she groans. I get up, crouch down, and tie them for her. "You'll get the hang of it, baby," she grins. "Thanks, Mom." Her smile is the only thing holding me together some mornings. It's been almost a year since my husband, Eric, died in an accident at the warehouse he managed. One moment he was leaving for work, kissing me on the forehead like always. The next, I was signing papers, arranging a funeral, and figuring out how to raise Lily alone. His parents, Linda and Paul, have been my saving grace. They pick Lily up from school when I work late, show up with homemade dinners, and never let me feel alone in my grief. I wish I could say the same about my own family. My parents, Diane and Frank, have never hidden their favoritism. My older sister, Rachel, has always been the golden child, perfect in their eyes. When she got married, they paid for the extravagant wedding. When she bought a house, they covered the down payment. And now, with 3 kids, she remains the center of their world. Lily? She's barely an afterthought. Last Sunday was proof of that. Lily was excited to see my parents. But as soon as we arrived, the criticism began. "Lily, don't touch that!" Mom snapped when she reached for a decorative bowl. Lily withdrew her hand, confused. "I just wanted to see how it was made." Mom sighed dramatically. "She always has so many questions, Nina. She's exhausting." My father nodded in agreement. Rachel's kids just sit quietly. No fuss. I clenched my jaw. Rachel's kids weren't quiet because they were well-behaved. They were quiet because they were glued to tablets, barely acknowledging the world around them. But to my parents, that was the ideal. Instead of arguing, I gathered Lily's things. "We should get going." "Oh, stay for dinner," Mom said, though her tone made it sound like an obligation rather than an invitation. I shook my head. "We have plans." Lily beamed up at me. "We do?" "We do now," I whispered, squeezing her hand. A week later, I got an unexpected dinner invitation from my parents. I should have known something was up. When I arrived, Mom had made my favorite lasagna, something she only did when she wanted something. Dad was unusually talkative, asking about work, about Lily, about my finances. And then it came. "So, Nina," Mom said, slicing into her food, "how much was Eric's life insurance payout?" My stomach dropped. I set my fork down, already regretting coming. "Why would you ask me that?" Mom gave a soft laugh, like it was just casual dinner conversation. "Oh, honey, it's just, we know raising a child alone is hard. We assumed you got something to help." I debated lying but was too exhausted. 200,000. Dad's head snapped up. Mom's smile grew tighter. "Well," she said, folding her napkin, "that's a good amount." I said nothing. Dad cleared his throat. "What are you planning to do with it?" I met his gaze, already knowing where this was going. "I invested it for Lily's future. College, security, maybe a house one day." Mom clicked her tongue. "Oh, Nina, that's years away. You should be thinking about your family now." I arched a brow. "I am. Lily is my family." Dad waved a hand. "You know what we mean." I did know. This wasn't about me. This was about them. "I just think," Mom continued carefully, "that since Rachel and I both helped you when Eric passed, it would be nice if you returned the kindness." I blinked. "Helped me? When?" "Well," she hesitated. "You know, emotional support." I let out a sharp laugh. "You mean the one phone call you made after the funeral? Or the casserole Rachel sent 3 months late?" Mom's lips thinned. "That's not fair, Nina." I shook my head. "No, what's not fair is you expecting me to hand over money because Rachel helped me with her thoughts and prayers." Dad sighed dramatically. "Rachel is struggling, Nina. She has 3 kids. You only have 1. There it was. They had done the math. 3 kids outweighed 1. Rachel was sacrificing more, so she deserved financial help. My blood boiled. I had spent years bending over backward, trying to earn their approval. And here they were, putting a price tag on it. "Fine," I heard myself say. "I'll do it." I hated myself for it. but some tiny, broken part of me still wanted to believe they'd treat Lily better if I complied. The first payment hurt. $1,000 wired to my parents' account, gone in seconds. I told myself it was worth it. But then came the excuses. Mom, can you pick Lily up from school today? I have a late meeting. Oh, honey, I wish I could, but I'm exhausted. You know how my back gets. Dad, could you take Lily to the park this weekend? Oh, sweetheart, I have errands to run. Maybe next time. Every time I asked for help, there was a reason they couldn't. Meanwhile, my in-laws never hesitated. One particularly tough Thursday, I called Linda in desperation. Of course, I'll get Lily, she said without hesitation. Paul is already on his way. I hung up, my throat tightening. $1,000 a month bought me nothing from my own parents. But my in-laws? They gave their love freely, never asking for a dime. December arrived. Christmas had always been at my parents' house. I never questioned it. Then, one evening, my phone rang. Mom's voice was syrupy sweet, too sweet. Nina, we've decided to do something different this year. A more sophisticated Christmas Eve party. Just adults. I gripped the phone tighter. No kids? She gave a light laugh. It'll be easier this way. You can leave Lily with Linda and Paul. I didn't respond right away. My heart pounded in my ears. She didn't even ask if I was okay with it. Just assumed I'd go along with it. And the worst part? Lily would be devastated. For a week, I debated what to do. Skipping Christmas felt dramatic, but leaving Lily behind felt wrong. So, I compromised. I'd drop by for a bit, exchange gifts, and then spend the real holiday with the people who actually loved us. But when I arrived on Christmas Eve, I saw something that made my stomach drop. The house was packed. Laughter and music filled the air. And among the crowd, running around with paper crowns and candy canes, were Rachel's kids, and my cousin's kids, and everyone else's kids. Everyone except mine. My fingers clenched around the bag of presents. Something inside me snapped. I wasn't just going to walk away this time. I was going to make sure they knew exactly what they had done. I stood frozen in the doorway, my grip tightening around the gift bag as I took in the scene. Children were everywhere, running, laughing, tearing into Christmas cookies without a care in the world. My cousin's kids, Rachel's 3, even my aunt's teenage son, who usually locked himself in his room during family gatherings. Every kid was here, except mine. Aunt Carol spotted me first. Nina! Merry Christmas, sweetheart. She rushed over and wrapped me in a hug, then pulled back with a confused frown. Where's Lily? Before I could answer, my cousin Daniel chimed in. Yeah, where is she? Lucas was looking forward to playing with her. More voices joined in. You didn't bring her. But she always comes for Christmas. What happened? Each question felt like a knife twisting deeper. Through the crowd, I spotted my mother in the kitchen, arranging cookies on a tray. Like nothing was wrong, like she hadn't specifically told me this was an adults-only party. Like she hadn't just excluded her own granddaughter from Christmas. The first swallowed the lump in my throat, straightened my shoulders, and marched toward her. Mom. My voice was sharp, steady. She didn't look up. Oh, Nina, you're early. Come help me with. Can we talk? Something in my tone made her finally meet my gaze. Of course, dear. She wiped her hands on a dish towel, leading me toward the hallway. What is it? I folded my arms. You told me this was an adults-only party. Her expression didn't change. It is. I let out a sharp laugh. Really? Then why are Rachel's kids here, and Daniel's, and everyone else's? She exhaled, adjusting her sweater sleeve. That's different. Different how? She hesitated. Those children know how to behave at formal gatherings. They're well-mannered. I felt my pulse in my ears. Well-mannered? Lily is one of the kindest, most respectful kids I know. She just likes to ask questions because she actually wants to learn about the world. Mom rolled her eyes. That's exactly the problem, Nina. She's exhausting. She never stops talking. There it was. She hadn't excluded Lily because it was an adults-only event. She had excluded her because she found her inconvenient. A loud crash echoed from the dining room. We both turned to see Rachel's youngest, Miles, tossing a plate onto the floor, laughing hysterically, while his sister tried to wrestle a candy cane from his hands. I looked back at Mom. Yeah, I really see how well-mannered they are. She waved a dismissive hand. Oh, that's just kids being kids. I clenched my fists. But when Lily asks about the clock mechanics or how an oven works, that's unacceptable? She sighed like I was being unreasonable. You're making a big deal out of nothing. I took a step back, my breath coming faster. You lied to me. You told me no kids were allowed, but the truth is, you just didn't want my kid here. Her lips pressed together in a thin line. Nina, don't be dramatic. That word, dramatic. It was what she always said when she didn't want to take responsibility, when she wanted to brush things under the rug, but not this time. I inhaled slowly, then exhaled. I'm leaving, she shrugged. Fine, but leave the gifts. We're opening them after dinner. I stared at her, my mind struggling to process the audacity. Then, without thinking, I turned and strode into the living room, raising my voice just enough to cut through the chatter. Hey everyone, I said, forcing a smile. Conversations died. All eyes turned to me. I just wanted to clear something up, I continued. A lot of you have been asking where Lily is. A few nods. Murmurs of agreement. Well, I said, my voice steady. She's not here because my mother called me last week and told me this was an adults-only party. Gasps. Whispers. Aunt Carol blinked. What? Uncle Mike frowned. But all the kids are here? I turned toward Mom, whose face had gone pale. Exactly. The room filled with confused murmurs. Rachel shifted uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact. Dad, who had been silent this whole time, pinched the bridge of his nose. I wasn't done. Oh, and while we're at it, I continued, my tone laced with sarcasm. Did you all know that I've been sending Mom and Dad $1,000 every month? A stunned silence. Uncle Steve raised an eyebrow. Wait, what? Rachel's husband, Greg, snapped his head toward her. What do you mean $1,000? My sister shrank in her seat. Mom took a step forward, her voice sharp. Nina, that's enough. I ignored her. Yeah, you heard that right, I continued, scanning the room. Rachel said she was sending them $500, and I was expected to send $1,000. Then I turned to Rachel. But you never actually sent anything, did you? Greg's face darkened. Is that true, Rachel? Rachel stammered. My mom and dad told me to say I was contributing. They said if Nina thought I was helping, she'd feel obligated to send more. The room erupted into shocked murmurs. Disgust. Judgment. Aunt Carol looked furious. So you lied to Nina just to get more money out of her? Dad, silent until now, finally spoke. We're family. We help each other. I let out a bitter laugh. Right. Family. You mean the same family that just excluded my daughter from Christmas? The same family that only sees me as a paycheck? Mom's voice wavered. Nina, please. You're blowing this out of proportion. No, I said, my voice cold. I'm done. I grabbed my bag, turned on my heel, and walked to the door. Mom followed, her voice desperate now. Nina, don't do this. I turned back one last time. Enjoy your party, Mom. But don't expect another cent from me. And with that, I walked out. The drive to Linda and Paul's house felt like a breath of fresh air. As soon as I stepped inside, warmth surrounded me. The scent of cinnamon, the sound of laughter. Lily ran up to me, her face lighting up. Mom, look! Grandma Linda let me decorate cookies. Linda smiled warmly. She's a natural. I knelt beside her, brushing a curl from her forehead. Did you have fun, baby? She nodded enthusiastically. The best time, and just like that, the tightness in my chest eased. This was home. I didn't need my parents' approval. I didn't need their conditional love. Lily and I had real family, the kind that showed up, the kind that loved without expectation. As I sat by the fireplace watching my daughter laugh, I made a silent promise to myself. We would be okay, and for the first time in a long time, I truly believed it. The morning after Christmas, the first woke up feeling weightless. For the first time in years, I wasn't tangled in the endless cycle of trying to please my parents. I wasn't agonizing over their approval, waiting for a sign that they valued me and Lily. I had walked away, and I wasn't looking back. Lily was still asleep, her small body curled up under a pile of blankets. I brushed a hand over her forehead, then slipped quietly out of bed, heading to the kitchen. Linda was already up, pouring herself a cup of coffee. She glanced at me and smiled. How are you feeling? I let out a slow breath, like I just dropped a 1,000-pound weight off my shoulders. She nodded knowingly. Good, you did the right thing. Before I could respond, my phone vibrated on the counter. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. Seconds later, a text popped up. Nina, call me. We need to talk. Then another. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. Do you even realize what you've done? And another. You need to fix this. Family doesn't turn their backs on each other. I exhaled sharply, flipping my phone face down on the table. Linda raised an eyebrow. Let me guess she's playing the victim? Of course, I muttered. Not a single word about Lily, just about how I made her look bad. Linda shook her head. Typical. She took a sip of coffee, then looked me in the eye. What do you want to do? I didn't even have to think about it. Nothing. I was done chasing people who never chose me back. It didn't take long for the fallout to spread. By lunchtime, my Aunt Carol called. Sweetheart, I just wanted to check on you, she said gently. I want you to know most of us are on your side. My throat tightened. Really? Oh, honey, she sighed. The second you left, the whole room turned on your parents. Your dad tried to act like nothing happened, but the damage was done. People started leaving Mike, Steve, Marie. No one wanted to stay. A tiny, petty part of me felt satisfaction. Not because I wanted my parents to suffer, but because, for once, they were being held accountable. I hesitated before asking the question I wasn't sure I wanted the answer to. And Rachel? Carol sighed. Greg took the kids and left. My stomach twisted. She tried to downplay everything, but Greg wasn't having it, Carol continued. He told her he needed space to think about their marriage. Said he was taking the kids to his parents' house for the rest of the holidays. I chewed my bottom lip. As much as Rachel had hurt me, I wouldn't wish a broken family on anyone. Carol must have sensed my thoughts because she quickly added, None of this is your fault, Nina. They did this to themselves. I nodded, even though guilt still gnawed at me. I thanked her for calling, hung up, and sank into a kitchen chair, processing everything. Linda sat down across from me, watching me carefully. You okay? I swallowed hard. I think so. And for the first time, I actually meant it. For the next few days, I ignored my parents' calls and texts. I knew exactly what they were doing, waiting for me to cave, for me to apologize even though they were the ones who had hurt me. But I wasn't that person anymore. Then, on New Year's Eve morning, the doorbell rang. I peered through the peephole. Mom and Dad. They stood on my porch, bundled in coats, holding an expensive-looking gift bag. My stomach clenched, but I took a deep breath and opened the door, stepping outside without letting them in. Mom's face was tight, her eyes red-rimmed. Nina, we just want to talk. Dad held out the bag. This is for Lily. I didn't take it. She doesn't need it. Mom bristled. Nina, we know we made mistakes. I folded my arms. Mistakes? She hesitated. Yes. We handled things poorly. We should have communicated better. I let out a bitter laugh. Communicated? You lied to me. You excluded my daughter from Christmas. And now you're here because you got caught, not because you actually regret what you did. Dad sighed. Can't we just move forward? I tilted my head. Are you sorry because you realize you were wrong? Or are you sorry because the whole family turned against you? They exchanged a look. And in that moment, I had my answer. I exhaled. I think you should leave. Mom's lips trembled. Nina, we're family? I met her gaze evenly. No, family doesn't manipulate. Family doesn't exclude a child to make things easier. Family doesn't use someone for money and then discard them when they're inconvenient. Dad's jaw tightened. So that's it? You're cutting us off? I didn't hesitate. Yes. They stood there, stunned. I nodded toward their car. Goodbye, Mom. Dad. They lingered for a moment, then turned and walked away, still clutching the unopened gift. I watched them drive off, half expecting to feel guilt, sadness, regret. But I felt none of those things. Only relief. Over the next few months, I stayed firm in my decision. I ignored the calls, the weak apologies. Rachel tried reaching out too, but I blocked her number. And the money I had been sending my parents, it went straight into Lily's college fund instead. And the best part? I wasn't alone. Aunt Carol invited us over for Sunday dinners. Uncle Mike and his wife had us for backyard barbecues. Lily got to play with cousins who actually wanted to see her. One afternoon, as we sat outside watching the kids run around, Lily tugged on my sleeve. Mom? I looked down. Yeah, baby. She grinned. Why does Uncle Mike's pool smell funny? Before I could answer, Uncle Mike chuckled. That's the chlorine, kiddo. It keeps the water clean. Want to know how it works? Lily's face lit up. Yes! He launched into a full explanation, and I watched as my daughter soaked up every word, fully engaged. No one sighed. No one rolled their eyes. They wanted to hear what she had to say. And in that moment, I knew I had made the right choice. We had lost people, but we had gained something better. A family that actually loved us. A life that was ours to build, free from conditions and guilt. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't looking back. Cutting my parents out of my life was supposed to bring me peace. And for the most part, it did. But that didn't mean they gave up easily. The first few weeks after New Year's were quiet. I thought maybe they had finally accepted my decision. But then, one afternoon, I got a text from an unknown number. Rachel, Nina, please. Can we talk? I stared at the message for a long time, debating whether to respond. A few weeks ago, I would have ignored it. But a small part of me was curious. Not about an apology. Rachel never apologized for anything, but about how she was handling things now that our parents weren't using me as an ATM. So, against my better judgment, I replied, Me, what do you want? Her response came fast. Rachel, can we meet? Just us? No drama, I sighed. I knew better, but something inside me wanted to hear what she had to say. We met at a small cafe near my work. It felt safer than inviting her into my home, my space. She was already sitting at a table when I arrived, stirring a cup of tea, her expression carefully neutral. I sat down across from her, crossing my arms. All right, talk. Rachel exhaled like she was preparing for battle. Greg still isn't talking to me. I didn't respond. I wasn't about to comfort her for the consequences of her own actions. She sighed. I didn't think things would go this far. I never meant for you to find out about the money. I raised an eyebrow. You didn't mean for me to find out? That's your apology? Rachel hesitated, then looked away. Mom and Dad convinced me it was the right thing. They said you'd be fine, that you had the money to spare. They made it sound like you owed them. I clenched my fists under the table. I owed them nothing. I know, she admitted. But you have to understand I cut her off. No, Rachel, you have to understand. They used you, just like they used me. The difference is, you went along with it because it benefited you. She swallowed hard. I don't know how to fix this. I shook my head. You can't. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. Does that mean we're done? You're done with me too? I studied her for a long moment. She had always been my parents' favorite, the golden child, the one who never had to fight for approval. And yet, sitting here now, she looked lost, like she was finally realizing how conditional their love really was. I don't know, Rachel, I admitted. I don't trust you anymore. She nodded slowly, like she expected that answer. I get it. I stood up. I hope you figure things out. But I can't be part of it. I walked away, leaving her there with her untouched tea. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. Life moved on. Lily and I settled into our new routine, one that didn't include forced visits with people who didn't appreciate us. Linda and Paul continued to be our rock. They picked Lily up from school, helped with her science projects, and made sure she always felt loved. One evening, I was washing dishes when Lily came running into the kitchen, her face lit up. Mom! Grandma Linda signed me up for a science camp this summer. I wiped my hands on a towel. She did, huh? Lily nodded enthusiastically. It's at the museum! I get to do experiments and meet real scientists. I glanced toward Linda, who stood in the doorway with a small smile. She's been talking about it for weeks, Linda said. Paul and I thought it'd be the perfect way to encourage her curiosity. I felt my throat tighten. Thank you. Linda stepped forward, resting a hand on my shoulder. Nina, you and Lily are family. Real family. We love you both. I swallowed the lump in my throat and pulled her into a hug. This was what love looked like. Unconditional, given freely. A month later, I got a letter in the mail. The handwriting was unmistakable. Mom. I debated throwing it away, but curiosity got the better of me. I opened the envelope and unfolded the letter, my hands steady. Nina, we miss you. I don't know what else to say except that. Things aren't the same without you and Lily. Your father doesn't talk about it, but I know he regrets how things happened. I regret it too. We shouldn't have lied. We shouldn't have taken your money. We shouldn't have excluded Lily. But we're your parents, and we love you. Please, just consider talking to us. Mom, I stared at the words, waiting to feel something. Sadness, longing, regret. But all I felt was exhaustion. It was a weak apology at best. There was no real ownership of their actions, no acknowledgement of the pain they had caused. Just another attempt to reel me back in. I folded the letter, set it on the table, and walked away. I didn't need their love anymore. I had enough. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. I left my mother's letter on the table for days. I wasn't sure why I didn't throw it away immediately. Maybe a small part of me still wanted to believe my parents were capable of real change, that they weren't just reaching out because they had lost their safety net. But deep down, I knew the truth. They missed what I provided, not me. And that wasn't love. One evening, as I was cleaning up after dinner, Lily wandered into the kitchen. She climbed onto a stool, watching me carefully. "Mom," she asked hesitantly, "are we ever going to see Grandma and Grandpa again?" I set down the dish I was scrubbing, drying my hands before turning to her. "Why do you ask, sweetheart?" She shrugged, swinging her legs. "I heard you talking to Aunt Carol the other day. She said Grandma wrote you a letter." I sighed, sitting beside her. "She did." Lily tilted her head. "Are you going to write back?" I hesitated. "I don't think so." She bit her lip. "Because they don't like me?" My heart cracked. I reached for her hands, holding them tightly. "No, baby, this isn't about you. You did nothing wrong." She blinked up at me. "Then why?" I swallowed hard. How could I explain years of neglect, manipulation, and conditional love to a 7-year-old? I took a deep breath. Because real love, is about more than just saying, "I love you." It's about showing it. About treating people with kindness and respect. And Grandma and Grandpa, they haven't done that for a long time. Lily nodded slowly, thinking it over. Then she said something I wasn't expecting. "I like our family better now." I blinked. "You do?" She smiled. "Yeah. Grandma Linda and Grandpa Paul always listen to me. Aunt Carol hugs me so tight when we visit. And Uncle Mike lets me ask as many questions as I want." I felt my chest tighten, not with sadness, but with relief. Lily wasn't missing anything. She had all the love she needed. And so did I. That night, after Lily went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my mother's letter one last time. Then, without hesitation, I ripped it in half. I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. I was just done. For years, I had been chasing after something I would never get from my parents, their approval, their love without conditions. But I didn't need it anymore. I had built something better. Of course, life has a funny way of testing you the moment you think you've found peace. A few weeks after I destroyed the letter, my phone rang. It was Aunt Carol. "Nina, honey, I'm sorry to call so late." I frowned, glancing at the clock. "Everything okay?" She hesitated. "It's your dad." I stiffened. "What about him?" "He had a mild heart attack this morning. He's in the hospital. He's stable, but..." She sighed. "Your mom asked me to tell you. She thought you should know." I sat there, gripping the phone, my mind swirling. Did I care? I wasn't sure. I hadn't spoken to my father in months. Not since I told him to leave my porch. And even before that, we'd never had a real, close relationship. He was the kind of man who showed affection through duty, providing financially, fixing things around the house, but never through words or warmth. And yet, hearing he was in the hospital still made my stomach turn. Carol's voice softened. "You don't have to go, Nina. But if you want to, I'll go with you." I closed my eyes, exhaling slowly. Did I want to, or did I just feel like I should? I found myself in the hospital waiting room later that evening, Carol at my side. I wasn't sure what I expected. Maybe some dramatic realization, like in the movies. Maybe regret. But when my mother finally spotted me, all I saw was exhaustion. She looked older, more fragile. But the moment she opened her mouth, I knew nothing had really changed. "I knew you'd come," she said, as if my presence had been guaranteed. I didn't respond. She gestured toward the door behind her. "He's awake. You should go in." I studied her carefully. "Are you going to apologize for everything?" She blinked. "Nina, is now really the time?" "Yes," I interrupted. "Because if you're expecting me to walk in there and pretend nothing happened, it's not going to happen." she exhaled, rubbing her temples. Nina, we're family. I almost laughed. That excuse again. No, I said firmly. We're not. Not anymore. Her face hardened. So you're really going to turn your back on your father? On me? I tilted my head. Did you ever feel this way when you turned your back on Lily? Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. That was all the answer I needed. I turned to Carol. Let's go. Without another glance at my mother, I walked out of that hospital, and I didn't look back. The drive home was quiet. Carol didn't say much, and I appreciated that. When I finally pulled into my driveway, I just sat there for a moment, staring at my house, my home. The place I had built, not just for me, but for Lily. I stepped inside and peeked into her room. She was fast asleep, her stuffed rabbit tucked under her arm. She was safe, loved, whole, and so was I. That night, as I lay in bed, I felt lighter than I ever had before. I had finally done it. I had finally let go. And for the first time in my life, I knew I was free. The morning after I walked out of the hospital, I woke up feeling different. Not heavy, not conflicted, just free. For years, I had carried the weight of trying to prove my worth to my parents, of wanting to be seen, accepted, and loved without conditions. But that part of me had finally died in that hospital hallway, and I didn't miss it. Lily was already awake, curled up on the couch with a book when I walked into the living room. She looked up, smiling. Morning, Mom. I kissed the top of her head, ruffling her curls. Morning, baby. What are you reading? She held up the cover. It's about space. Did you know that stars are born from big clouds of dust and gas? I grinned. That's pretty amazing. She nodded eagerly. Uncle Mike said he's going to take me to the planetarium next weekend. I froze for a second, feeling something warm settle in my chest. This was what family was supposed to feel like. Not obligation, not guilt. Just people showing up because they wanted to. I sat down beside her, pulling her close. That sounds like a perfect day. And for the first time, I truly believed it. Over the next few months, I fully stepped into the life I had built. Without my parents' constant demands, my finances felt stable for the first time in years. Instead of handing over $1,000 a month to people who didn't appreciate me, I put that money toward Lily's future. I signed her up for a science camp in the summer. I took time off work to take her on weekend trips. I even started considering going back to school myself, something I had put off for years because I was always too busy taking care of other people. And best of all, the people who mattered were still there. Aunt Carol kept inviting us over for Sunday dinners. Uncle Mike and his wife had us over for cookouts, where Lily was free to ask a million questions without judgment. Linda and Paul continued to be our rock, showing up for every school play, every late-night emergency when I needed help. And slowly, I realized something. I wasn't missing anything. I wasn't broken without my parents. I was whole. It took my mother 3 months to reach out again. This time, it was a voicemail. I debated deleting it without listening, but curiosity got the better of me. Her voice came through, tired and strained. Nina, I don't know if you'll ever speak to me again, but I need you to know something. Your father. He hasn't been the same since you left. He barely speaks. He won't even look at Lily's picture on the mantle. I closed my eyes, gripping the phone tighter. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But I do love you, Nina. And I love my granddaughter. I just wish I had realized it sooner. A long pause. Then, softer, please. If nothing else, just let Lily know I love her. The message ended. I sat there, staring at my phone, waiting to feel something. Anger, regret, sadness. But all I felt was peace. She had finally admitted it. Not in some grand, manipulative speech. Not with excuses. Just the truth. And it had come too late. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Some things didn't need a perfect ending. Sometimes walking away was the ending. Months turned into seasons. Spring arrived, bringing fresh starts and warm afternoons spent outside. One Saturday, as Lily and I walked through the park, she tugged on my hand. Mom, can I ask you something? I smiled. Always. She hesitated. Are you happy? The question caught me off guard. I looked down at her bright, curious eyes, and for the first time in my life, I didn't have to force my answer. "Yes, baby," I said, squeezing her hand. "I really am." She grinned, satisfied, and ran ahead to chase a butterfly. I stood there, watching her, feeling the sun on my face, the grass beneath my feet, the weightlessness of a life without chains. I had spent so many years trying to fix things that were never mine to fix. But now, I was finally living. And I wasn't looking back. Story 2, my kid was crying when she got home from school. Grandma gifted cousin Lily a trip and a high-end purse, Mom. However, she merely handed me a toy that cost $1. I called my mother and gave her a hug. She chuckled. "Lily deserves the finest after all. Your kid ought to be appreciative that she received anything at all." However, she encountered an unexpected effect a few days later. In the suburbs of Alexandria, Virginia, colonial-style homes surrounded by white picket fences soaked in the soft morning light on a May morning that smelled like new vegetation. "Remember to pack your lunch, Emma. Today, I prepared your favorite pot roast sandwich." As she dropped off her third grader at the front door, Jennifer Wilson yelled. Emma, dressed in a pale pink gown, gave her mother a firm embrace and smiled brightly in return. "Mom, you are loved." She made a gesture as radiant and welcoming as the springtime sun. This loving moment between mother and daughter appeared to be guarded by the dogwood flowers that were in bloom in the neighborhood. Michael, her husband, waved goodbye and said be careful as he drove out in his white pickup truck to the building site. Being the proprietor of a modest yet prosperous construction business, he felt a sense of pride and need to provide for his family. After greeting Emma after school and putting on the sanitized scrubs she had purchased from TJ Maxx, Jennifer started her daily schedule as a nurse at the nearby hospital. The trip to the hospital would take her the customary 15 minutes, during which time police patrol cars would sometimes honk their sirens. The dawn light shone on the ancient streets of the old town. "Jennifer, good morning. I'm excited to collaborate with you today." As she greeted her coworkers, she thought back to the events of the previous evening, including the dinner table they had gathered around the kitchen island, following Michael's completion of his building project, and Emma's animated discussion of her piano concert. It made her heart sing. Additionally, soccer practice was scheduled for the upcoming weekend. It was a commonplace but unquestionably valuable satisfaction. But behind this quiet everyday existence, unseen fissures were gradually growing. Her sister Catherine, her husband Gregory, a vice president at an investment firm, and their daughter Lily, who went to a private school, resided in a posh area. They lived in a Georgian home surrounded by opulent pursuits like tennis, ballet, and horseback riding. Margaret, their mother, publicly showed preference for Catherine's relatives. Margaret, a powerful figure in the church and First Presbytery, placed a high priority on social standing. She would proudly present Catherine's family at the Sunday luncheon following the service. Emma received a doll from the dollar store for birthdays only during the casting process. A trip to Disneyland was one of the exceptional presents given to Lily. Lily, wearing brand new Nordstrom clothing, was positioned in the middle of family portraits, while Emma, wearing used gowns, was moved to the side. At garden club tea parties and charity bazaars, Margaret continued to act in a discriminating manner. In addition to following her mother's lead, Catherine occasionally took the initiative to express contempt for her sister's family. Robert, their father, who was an executive at a large firm before retiring, recently started to take note of his wife's actions, after being preoccupied with work for 40 years. On the drive home from Wednesday, he was at last beginning to see his family's situation, study the Bible. He would ask Margaret, his wife, "Why are Emma and Lily treated so differently?" "You wouldn't comprehend, I see." Appears in public. The old red brick church, founded in 1772, provides the serene setting for weekend church attendance. Beneath the discussion, family tensions were steadily but subtly growing. Grins. The wind chime-like sound of school dismissal reverberated along Maple Street, which was lined with colonial-style homes, on a May day around 3 o'clock. In the early summer sun, the geranium on the Wilson family's porch flowered gloriously. The cozy ambiance of their house was reflected in their well-kept garden, which took home awards each year in the local gardening enthusiast competition. Jennifer was getting ready to see her daughter in the kitchen after wrapping off her early hospital shift. She was making cookies with chocolate chips. As the delicious scent permeated the room, Emma's favorite handmade treats made from her grandmother's recipe were sure to make her kids smile. She was putting fresh groceries from Whole Foods and organic veggies in the refrigerator and planned the menu for tomorrow. Normally, the lively voices of the local kids might be heard at this time. Emma would frequently talk to her pals and occasionally remain to finish her schoolwork. Today, however, was different. "I've returned home." Maternal alarm bells were raised by the voice coming from the entrance. It wasn't the upbeat tone she usually used. Rather, it was stifled and weighty. When Jennifer saw Emma go into the living room, she gasped. Her St. Mary's private school outfit, which she typically wore neatly, was unkempt. It was a crooked navy pleated skirt. The white blouse became rumpled. Her chest was adorned with an embroidered insignia that appeared to be twisted out of shape and wailing. The straps of her Ralph Lauren rucksack shook in her clenched fists, and her typically well-styled brown hair was disheveled. Emma's eyes were welling with tears. Her cheeks had dried tear tracks on them, and the corners were puffy and red. "What's wrong, Emma?" Emma's voice was strangled as Jennifer hurried over. The daughter who had bounded out that morning was nowhere to be seen. "Mom, you are loved. Mom!" Lily received a vacation to Disneyland and a Gucci purse from Grandma. However, for me, as Emma took a little package out of her rucksack, her voice drifted off. Without even present wrapping, a cheap plastic doll from the dollar shop was crammed into a sloppy box. The surface of the doll was already covered with dust. "How did you learn about it?" In front of everyone at school, Lily was boasting about it. Emma's little lips quivered with every tremor in her speech. Even her mother's heart trembled. Lily took her new bag to recess. People were congregating and exclaiming, "Wow!" Emma pressed the sleeve of her white uniform against her eyes as she took a deep breath and choked on her words. She found it difficult to go on. "Grandma gave me this," Lily remarked. "I deserve expensive things," she remarked. "However, Emma," she then pulled out my gift box and said, "Look at this to the others." Everyone was giggling. The tears came again. Emma's little shoulders trembled. Amidst the delightful aroma of cookies, the kitchen was suddenly laden with melancholy. Jennifer cradled her kid. As she continued to stroke her daughter's back, she made a valiant effort to keep her anger in check. Emma's outfit smelled like school chalk and laundry detergent. "Hold on." Reaching for the phone, Jennifer called her mother's number. Margaret's voice could be heard in the background after 3 rings. There were the animated voices of affluent women at a tea gathering hosted by a garden club. "Well, this is out of the ordinary, Jennifer. What's this all about, Mom? What are you saying?" The distinction between Emma and Lily's presence. The phone rang with a shallow chuckle. In addition to the sound of teacups clinking, it was an even more haughty voice. "Really? Making such a pointless call? This is not a small matter. Why is there such discrimination?" "Well, doesn't Lily deserve the best? She is the daughter of Catherine, the investment bank's daughter. The wife of the vice president needs specific items. Your kid ought to be appreciative that she got anything at all." At my age, I never imagined having to explain such apparent things. The haughtiness that comes with years of social standing as a First Presbyterian church leader was evident in Margaret's voice. She spoke with complete assurance. "Obviously." "How did it feel to offend Emma?" "Obviously." "How theatrical society is, my dear. Classes are offered." Jennifer ended the call. There was no need for her to carry on the discussion. She let out a long breath and put her shaking hand on the kitchen counter. When Michael got home from work at twilight, she filled him in on what had happened that day. Her husband's eyes were flaming with wrath, and she could see it. Even so, he was worn out from building. How were they able to? Michael's fist clenched. On his huge hands, which had been hardened by construction labor, blue veins were clearly visible. Holding her husband's hand, Jennifer added, "But let's think this through calmly. Let's concentrate on what we can do for Emma's sake." They chatted outside the window for a while. The street outside the white picket gate was silently filled with dusk. There was still the sound of children laughing. The peaceful village was filled with the sound of First Presbyterian Church's bells on a Sunday morning. The white spire was bathed in early summer sunlight, and the floor was illuminated by rainbow-colored light from stained glass windows. With more than 200 years of existence, this church has long served as the upper class of Alexandria's spiritual fulcrum. Generations of faith left their marks on the red brick walls. "Are you all right, Emma?" Jennifer's kid sat quietly in the back car and called out to her. Emma would usually talk excitedly about Sunday school at this point. Despite wearing her blue dress appropriately, she simply let out a heavy sigh today. There were still strong remnants of yesterday's events on her face. Her mother had ironed her white-collared blouse late the night before, and she held the edge nervously. There were already a lot of automobiles in the church parking lot, including the Wilsons' BMW and Mercedes. Toyota was practical and occupied a small area. Michael said that everything will be okay, while softly stroking Emma's hair. The women placed seasonal flowers and American flags to adorn the church entryway in anticipation of Memorial Day. In the early light, geraniums and petunias glistened wonderfully. "Good morning, Jennifer." Catherine welcomed her with a flimsy grin at the church door, wearing a Burberry outfit. At her throat, a brand new Cartier necklace sparkled. Lily held her new Gucci bag proudly next to her. Lily's shoes, too, were obviously high-end. "What a beautiful purse, Lily." Members of the country club praised each other. Margaret, looking proud, put her hand on her granddaughter's shoulder. Her Lakoff twin set exuded the aroma of eau de parfum. Indeed. "My dear grandchild deserves nothing less than the finest." Emma's shoulders shuddered at those words. A melancholy feeling pervaded the assembly as the ritual got underway. The old church was filled with the magnificent music of the pipe organ, but the stillness was short-lived. An unforeseen situation happened during Sunday school hours. The marble corridor reverberated with Lily's malevolent voice. "Hold on!" Emma's voice was shaking. She gripped the dollar shop doll, which she had been holding since yesterday, even more tightly. "However, I want to demonstrate to everyone how Emma's and my grandmother's gifts differed. Naturally, there would be a class distinction, wouldn't it?" This talk was overheard by Robert, who just happened to be walking by. His astute executives, his granddaughter's nuanced facial expressions were not lost on me. Years of expertise made him aware of the situation's oddity right away. "What do you mean by it, Lily?" Lily recoiled at the harshness of his words. She had a look of surprise at the sudden harsh tone from her grandfather, who is typically polite. "Dad, give an explanation." Robert's voice has the authority that comes with managing a company for 40 years. The same acerbic look he used to have at important shareholder meetings was still in his eyes. Lily reluctantly started to describe Emma's dollar store doll, the Disneyland excursion, and the Gucci purse. Robert's face darkened with time, and his rage was marked by deep wrinkles. "Margaret." The congregation turned as his voice reverberated across the sanctuary. There was even a brief halt in the pastor's talk. Robert's irate face was lit by light coming through the stained glass. "Robert, what's the matter? It's church here." Aware of the onlookers, Margaret attempted to reprimand him in a quiet manner, but she noticed something in her husband's face that she had never seen before. Rage. "I would want to know why our grandkids differ from one another. Before Christ, respond to me." "Okay." Social appears in public. Robert's voice became more forceful. His rage spilled forth with the authority that came from years of experience as a business boss. His words seemed to reverberate throughout the cathedral. After 40 years of marriage, never in my life have I felt so let down. What have we valued all this time? Everyone held their breath as his words reverberated across the quiet sanctuary. The air only shook slightly with the reverberation of the pipe organs. "In this world, social appearances are incomprehensible to you. What looks are good enough to break our grandchild's heart?" The windows with stained glass shook at Robert's angry words. His voice conveyed the anguish of 40 years of eroding marital trust. Gifts for Christmas, birthdays, medical care, and family portraits. "I've heard it all. What are you contemplating? Do our familial ties equal to this? However, Lily is." "What is Lily?" As she is the daughter of Catherine. "Given that she works as an investment banker." "Daughter. Do you believe that these factors are important to God?" Robert went up to his spouse. The congregation anxiously observed. Surprised sounds were heard even among the seniors. Our church does not advocate for this kind of love. Equality is mentioned in Christ's teachings. How about you? You, Robert stammered as he spoke. Emma shuddered next to him, a little taken aback by her grandfather's rage. In that instant, she realized that his rage was a defense of her. Come on over here, Emma. Robert used his big hands to gently pull his granddaughter close. In the same way that he had held his daughter Jennifer, he caressed her back. This will be rectified by Grandpa. Before God, I swear. Emma's eyes began to well up with tears at those words. However, these were not the same as the melancholy tears of yesterday. They were tears of relief, warm tears. Margaret left the sanctuary because she could no longer stand the condemning glances she saw around her. Her departing form mimicked the sound of her Christian Dior heels, clicking quickly on the marble floor. The sound of her long-established social standing disintegrating was practically audible. Margaret Thompson's world started to come apart like falling dominoes after that Sunday. First, she was given an entirely different role at First Presbyterian Church. Her 40 years of accumulated power vanished in a flash. Elizabeth Montgomery, president of the Women's Association, proceeded uncomfortably. We've decided to review the selection of officers in reference to this year's Charity Bazaar, Margaret. After 20 years as the general manager of the Charity Bazaar, Margaret realized right away that she would be losing her job. I see, Margaret said frantically, attempting to control her shaking voice. However, there were already a number of rumors circulating around the church halls at that time. Her once close pals now acted as though they didn't notice her during choir practice on Sundays. She would have no companions. Regarding next week's bridge club, Margaret and Elizabeth had created an imperceptible wall. I apologize. As of this month, we have made the decision to restrict membership. This was only the start. The Alexandria Garden Club sent her a warning that her membership will be suspended. The handwritten letter from the club president referenced the rules pertaining to membership dignity. Margaret discovered that her garden, which she had meticulously maintained for 30 years, was no longer featured in the club's yearly calendar. She also had a change in position at the country club. The tennis courts were allegedly always completely booked when she attempted to make reservations, and she was no longer invited to the monthly tea parties. Madame, the Windsor family, who have long been pillars of society, called for this year's Christmas celebration. Unfortunately, this year's message was obvious because of seating restrictions. There were other changes in the family. Wednesday dinners were no longer attended by Catherine's family. Lily has been acting oddly recently, Mom. The haughtiness in Catherine's voice had vanished from the phone. She is being treated coldly by other kids at school. They claim that they don't wish to resemble their grandmother. When Margaret realized that even her granddaughter had been impacted by her actions, she gasped. School life. Her chest grew constricted. But it was her husband, Robert, who delivered the most devastating blow. I believe it would be best for us to be apart for a while, Margaret. His voice had an unheard of weight, having made many tough choices in the executive suite. I'm relocating to the holiday home. You need time to reflect on what you've done. However, Robert, this cannot be negotiated. And after a little pause, Robert let out a long sigh. I've made the decision to give Emma's education fund the majority of our savings. Lily already has a lot of assets. This is the appearance of fairness. Margaret's knees buckled under the words. Margaret sat on the sofa in her opulent living room and gazed out the window. The garden's well-kept spring flowers were still in full bloom, but the companions she had previously shared this beauty with were no longer there. Her mobile phone rang. When she saw St. James Luxury Senior Home on the screen, she quickly hung up. She could no longer afford the luxurious retirement lifestyle she had long envisioned. Rather, the table was covered with pamphlets from a typical suburban care home. The headline on the cover was Calm Living, but the pictures of the facilities were nothing like the elegant retirement she had imagined. Lord, please. The chamber rang powerfully with her prayer. The former queen of society was completely alone beneath the crystal chandelier. The clock's ticking seemed strangely loud. Margaret was vividly aware that her life's course had become irreversibly twisted. Bells were ringing outside the church. For her, the bells that announced the Sunday service had previously been a source of pride. They served as a reminder of everything she had lost. But now, they were only sounds. For the first time in the gloomy room, Margaret cried tears of genuine regret as she closed the drapes. She wasn't crying because she had lost her social standing. They were tears for the irreversible error of causing pain to the innocent hearts of her granddaughters. In the Wilson family's yard, a new season had returned to Alexandria in the spring of the next year. Emma and her buddies were working on their soccer skills. She was 9 years old now and considerably stronger than she had been. Well done. In the same spot where she was once privately derided as the daughter of a construction worker, neighbors shouted from beyond the white picket fence. Now everyone greeted one other warmly. Emma. Jennifer showed in with cookies and homemade lemonade for snack time. The spring breeze caused the white ribbon in her hair to flutter. Mom, we wrote essays on my proud moments in class today. Emma started, huddled against her mom. I wrote about my honest grandfather, my hardworking mother, and my devoted father. Jennifer's eyes filled with tears at those words. In contrast to her opulent reception room, Margaret was leading an entirely different existence in Maple Garden, a typical suburban nursing facility. She now had a modest private room that was the size of a 6-to-Tony mat. Geranium pots sat beside the window. She developed herself. Despite the lack of pricey vessels, the flowers were clearly vibrant. It's gardening club time, Miss S. Thompson. Margaret raised her head gently to listen to the caregiver's speech. Indeed. Thank you. Her look would startle anybody familiar with her from her glitzy social days. Ordinary department shop clothing took the place of her luxury clothing, which was put aside. But there was an odd calmness in her face. Grandma, Emma and Lily went to Margaret's room on a Sunday afternoon. After that episode, their relationship was gradually getting better. Lily, Margaret, and Emma looked at their granddaughters. The previous prejudiced appearance has vanished. Grandma, look. Lily enthusiastically reported that Emma and I had begun attending ballet classes together. Her life had drastically shifted from being dominated by costly pursuits like tennis and horseback riding until last year. That's fantastic. Unlike her previous flimsy flattery, these remarks are filled with real affection. Grandma, take a look. Emma displayed a picture from a recent music event at her school. In the piano recital, I took first place. My goodness. Margaret's hands were shaking a little as she took the picture. Now she could truly celebrate the development of her once negligent grandchild. That's fantastic. Grandmother's affection was evident in those statements. Today, Robert, who still lives apart, also paid Margaret a monthly visit. Sitting on a garden bench, they conversed in silence. Emma is doing a good job of managing her school fund. Indeed, thank you. You've evolved. Sure, but it could be too late. Robert gave Margaret's comments a quiet nod. Margaret was no longer frequently seen at church. Rather, she prayed in private in the tiny chapel of the nursing home. This modest room did not yet have grand pipe organs or ornate stained glass windows. For the first time, she was starting to realize what prayer really meant. Catherine had also changed. She wanted to live a more humble lifestyle and gave up her house in the affluent area. The issue with Mom got me to thinking. She told her sister Jennifer straight out how stupid we were, living for show and appearances. As Margaret watched her grandchildren go, early summer winds blew over the grounds of Maple Gardens. She thought that she had lost a lot of her social standing, her opulent lifestyle, and most significantly, her everyday life with her spouse. However, she had also benefited sincere connections, open feelings, and above all, real familial ties. Through her little window, Lord Margaret gazed up at the twilight sky. I appreciate you allowing me to live out my last days with this comprehension. Her chamber was softly lit by the waning sun. Story 3. In order to pay for my spoilt sister's trip, my parents surreptitiously attempted to use my credit card. I remained silent, but my sister made fun of me for being impoverished without my knowledge, so I promptly canceled my card. What came next was rather unexpected. I'm 25 years old, and my name is Sophia Carter. I've put a lot of effort into being self-sufficient, paying my own expenses and managing my finances wisely. Emily, my younger sister, is the total opposite. She is 21 years old, pampered, and has never had to earn anything in her life. Despite her self-centered behavior, my parents have always treated her like a princess. However, they went too far this time. When I looked at my credit card balance one morning, it all began. I anticipated to see a little bit because I don't use it very often, but instead my eyes opened in surprise. A $50,000 charge was pending. I had a $50,000 heart. I was aware that I had not used the money. There was a serious problem. I inhaled deeply before selecting the transaction information. When I realized the source of the charge, my stomach turned. An upscale travel company. It dawned on me then. This was no error. I felt bad because someone had attempted to use my credit card to pay for a costly trip. I knew who was responsible. I gazed at the screen with trembling hands. $50,000. That excursion wasn't simply costly. It was ridiculous. My credit card information was only accessible by 3 individuals. My dad, mom, and I. After inhaling deeply, I dialed the credit card company. I confirmed my identification and inquired about the fee. The agent said, "Yes, Miss Carter. The effort to complete this purchase last night was unsuccessful. Are you familiar with it?" I tightened my jaw. No, I want it to be canceled right away. I get it. To stop any more attempts, we'll freeze your card and block the charge. I let out a sigh of relief, yet I was filled with rage. I had been the target of theft attempts by my own parents. I wanted to face them right away. But before I could, Emily had left me a message on my phone. "Emily, you know what? While you're cooped up at home, I'll be enjoying drinks on the beach in a few days." Being impoverished is awful. I gazed at my computer screen. My blood is boiling. She was unaware of what had transpired. I had just shut off her fantasy trip, so she had no idea it was canceled. While my parents were surreptitiously stealing from me to support her lavish lifestyle, she had the audacity to make fun of me. I inhaled deeply while attempting to maintain my composure. "Not quite yet. Sophia, let them believe that everything is all right, because it was going to blow out the instant they learned what I had done." I waited while sitting on the couch with my phone in my hand. I was aware that the storm would arrive soon. My mother phoned 15 minutes later. I grinned. Exactly on time. I waited till the phone rang several times before picking it up. "Hello, Mother." "What did you do, Sophia?" She let out a cry. "No. Hi there. No idle chatter. Right up till the breakdown." I crossed my legs and leaned back. "What are you discussing? The card? The money?" It was turned down. When the travel agency phoned, they informed me that the transaction had been stopped. "It spoils Emily's trip." I feigned bewilderment. "Oh, that. Yes. My credit card was canceled." "Quiet. What did you do?" At last, she let out a scream. I gave an eye roll. "Why did you use my card at all, Mom?" "Silence is preferable than a feeble apology. We were going to reimburse you." I chuckled icily. "Oh, really? When? How much money?" "Sophia." Her voice was brimming with phony guilt as she yelled. "For Emily, we took this action. This trip is something she deserves. She has had a difficult time lately, as you are aware." I abruptly interrupted her. "Emily's wishes are fulfilled. She is not employed. Bills are not paid by her. She also believes that she is superior to everyone else. She's your sister," Mom gave a hiss. "You should be glad to assist." My blood began to boil. "Oh, you mean the way you were actually stealing from me this morning as she made fun of me for being impoverished?" One more quiet. This one went on longer. Then she adopted a new strategy. The journey of guilt. "Sophia, you were raised by us. We sacrificed everything for you. And now, the one occasion when we want assistance, you behave as though we are criminals." I sneered. "This isn't helping, Mom. It's stealing. You're amazing now because you stole from me." "Scott." At that moment, I heard a different voice in the distance. "My father. What's happening?" The card was canceled by Sophia. After Mom sobbed, there was a loud crash that likely hit the table. "Sophia." "This has to be fixed immediately." I chuckled. "Or what?" Dad snarled. "What a sour brat you are. You're doing well. That money isn't even necessary for you." "Oh, so you have my money now?" I lost my temper. "Perhaps you wouldn't feel the need to take from your own daughter if you hadn't lavished Emily with attention." My mother said something to me. Then my father talked once more. His tone was uncannily serene. Pay close attention to me, Sophia. Give the bank a call. Unfreeze the card. Permit the payment to be processed. I smiled. Not taking place. Mom let out a gasp. Your sister's life is being ruined by you. I gave an eye roll. No, you damaged it by teaching her that there are no repercussions for taking everything she wants. Then, before they could both speak again, I ended the call. I grinned and threw my phone on the table. The fun was only beginning. Before I could even have a food, my phone began to vibrate once more. Emily? I grinned. Exactly on time. I placed her on speaker when I picked her up. Hello, sis. The yelling began at once. What did you do? Emily let out a cry. You canceled the payment according to Mom and Dad. I've destroyed my trip. I nibbled at my granola bar. Oh, that, yes. You're welcome. You're welcome, she screamed. Are you crazy? In 3 days, I was to be lounging and sipping drinks on a private beach. How humiliating is this, do you know? Because of you, my pals are going without me. I reclined inside. Whoa. It must be really difficult. Emily was unaware of the sarcasm. Sophia, you are really self-centered. You never even take a trip. That money isn't even necessary for you. What's so important? I chuckled. It's my money, which is the major problem. You, Mom, and Dad believed that if you took $50,000 from me, I would realize it wasn't theft. She sighed. It wasn't even being used by you. I nearly dropped my phone. Money does not operate that way. Emily. She disregarded me. Don't you like destroying my life? I gave an eye roll. It doesn't wreck your life. This time, you just don't receive a free trip. As if I had smacked her, she gasped. You're unbelievable. My sister is intended to be you. Mom and Dad advised me to call the bank and quit being such a brat so they could repair this. I grinned. Give it some thought. I made a show of pausing. No, Emily snapped. I despise you. You're a loser who is envious, she screamed. You're a bitter broke person, which is why you don't want me to have good things. In mid-sentence, I hung up. The quiet was lovely. I stretched, sat back, and grinned to myself. Emily was furious. Both my parents and I were incensed. Although I had finally stopped allowing them to walk all over me, I had a hunch that this wasn't the end of it. The duration of the peace was brief. By the time I awoke the next day, I received a message from my dad that began with Sophia, 10 missed calls from my mom, and 6 irate texts from Emily. You had best give me a call back. I paid them all no attention. I recognized my family, even if they weren't receiving a dime from me. They had no intention of surrendering that quickly. The buzzer in my flat did indeed go off at noon. I let out a sigh. Let's get started. I looked at Emily, Mom, and the camera. I opened the door just enough to lean against the frame and rolled my eyes. Look. Who attempted to steal from me? How unexpected. As if she owned the house, Mom barged in. Emily trailed behind. She had her arms folded and a frown twisted on her face. Sophia. With a hauntingly lovely voice, Mom spoke. I understand your distress, but let's have a grown-up conversation. I chuckled. Oh, similar to adults. You mean the time you tried to take $50,000 be sneaking up on me? Emily moaned. Do we still have that? I gazed at her. We're still working on it, Emily. Mom let out a loud sigh. We weren't stealing, darling. We had borrowed. I folded my arms. Cool. Please let me use your vehicle. Wait, you don't have one anymore since you're trying to buy Emily a lavish trip while being deeply in debt. Mom's face flushed. The point is not that. Emily abruptly moved forward after pouting in the background. Look, just be honest, Sophia. You're only envious that I get to enjoy myself while you sit around the house like a dull loser. I gave a snort. Feeling envious? You're the one having a fit because you weren't given a complimentary trip. Anger distorted Emily's face. Everything was damaged by you. I grinned and repeated the action. Mom massaged her temples as if she was coping with my irrationality. You earn a nice living, honey. Why do you think this is so important? You have plenty to cover the journey. I tightened my jaw. Mom, that's not the point. The point is that you tried to steal from me and I assumed I would overlook it. Mom's voice grew icy as she sighed. That's it then? Will you simply let your own sister to suffer? Emily pouted. Playing the victim? Yes. You don't even comprehend, Sophia. My pals are all leaving me behind. I've previously written an internet post on this trip. People will assume I'm impoverished. I gazed at her. Oh, no. In any case, Emily screamed in frustration and slung her handbag at me. I easily avoided that. Whoa, very mature. Mom took Emily by the arm. Hurry up, honey. It's obvious that she's lost. She faced me once again, her gaze freezing. Sophia, you'll regret this. I smiled. I don't think so. They slammed the door behind them and rushed out. I grinned as I reclined on the couch. I was more than prepared for whatever Mom was going to do next, since she only used that voice when she was making plans. Although I was certain that my family would persevere, I didn't anticipate them becoming even more depressed that evening. My bank sent me an urgent email with a fraud alert topic. Your account has been the subject of strange activity. We have discovered an attempt to log in from an unfamiliar device. Sophia Carter. Please get in touch with us right away if this wasn't you. Your financial institution. My stomach dropped. They wouldn't. I checked my account after opening my banking app. My password has been reset twice by someone. I balled my fists up. I recognized the person. My dad texted me a second later, and my phone chimed. We have to discuss now, Dad. I gazed at my computer screen. You want to chat now? I phoned him even though I didn't feel like playing games. The moment he responded, he left. How on earth did you harm your mother? He lost his temper. I blinked. Please pardon me. She had spent the entire night in tears. He went on. You made her feel ashamed. This family was humiliated by you. I laughed a little dryly. You're referring to the day she and Emily stormed into my place and demanded money from me? Yes. They were embarrassed by that. My father disregarded me. She is inconsolable. Sophia, this is not how we brought you up. And now? Your own mother is getting tired of your self-centered bullshit now. I tightened my jaw. Do you mean the self-centered foolishness in which you attempt to defraud me of $50? Oh? It wasn't theft. He let forth a shout. We were going to reimburse you. With what? Magic beans. I fired back. He didn't respond. Rather, he gave a quick exhale. Give Emily the money, please. There is no need for a conflict. She's your sister. I gave a little laugh. That's odd, since from where I'm standing, it appears like a battle. The tone of Dad's speech fell to one of caution. Sophia, don't do this. I squinted. Oh, you're referring to tonight's attempt to hack my bank account? Quiet. Bingo. Yes, I said. I received a notification, as well as the fact that you called me out of the blue. It's not a coincidence. Try to act stupid, Dad. I have no idea what you're discussing. I grinned. It's okay. The bank is already looking into it. I would be extremely cautious about what transpires next if I were you. More quiet. He hung up after that. I sat there for a while, allowing my anger to subside. This was not the end of it. Not even close. They wouldn't like what happened next, so I played dirtier if they wanted to play nasty. I held my phone and inhaled deeply. It was impossible to predict what else my own parents may do if they were prepared to attempt to get into my bank account. All right. They desired to act shady. I'm able to play too. I first contacted with the fraud department of my bank over the phone. I described the situation with the stolen card, the illegal login attempts, and my family's history of financial deception. The bank employee was not pleased. This is serious, Miss Carter. We are initiating an investigation and flagging your account for additional security. Excellent. I then updated the passwords for all of my bank accounts and emails, even my Netflix. I was not going to let these individuals any access to my life. Then I did one last thing. I went to my credit report and put my credit on hold. No new credit cards, no loans, nothing. They would run into a brick block if they even considered utilizing my information to open something in my name. I grinned as I sat back. Checkmate. After a few days, there was silence for the first time in a long time. Neither Emily nor my parents called or texted. Then my Aunt Lisa, sent me a note. Hello, dear. Is everything all right? Your mother is telling everyone that you abandoned the family and left them in dire straits. Give me a call. With a sigh, I returned her call. Lisa? As soon as she responded, I said, I'll guess. Once more, Mom is becoming the victim. Aunt Lisa let out a sigh. Oh, you don't know. My mother apparently went on a tearful narrative tour, telling all of my relatives that I had betrayed the family and put them in a difficult situation because I was selfish. Lisa went on to say, she even told Grandma that you stole from them. They were only attempting to pay the rent, she said. A fresh, nasty one. Put the card in block mode. I chuckled. Incredibly so. Lisa. In order to pay for Emily's vacation, they attempted to take $50,000 from me. Dead quiet. Hold on, what? Mom conveniently omitted that bit, huh? I explained everything for the following 10 minutes, including Emily's outburst, the hacking attempt, and how they attempted to charge my card. Lisa was furious at the end of it. She raged, "That is so incredibly disgusting. I'm phoning Mom, you know what I mean. This is not acceptable." I grinned. Come stay with me. The last strike. Emily texted me later that evening. Emily, you told Lisa? What the devil is wrong with you? Me? I apologize. Did you want to hide your tiny scam? You're the worst sister ever, Emily. Me? I still have all of my money, though. It's funny how that operates. I was left on read by her. Then, right before bed, I received a final message from my father. You believe you've won, Dad. Simply wait. This is something you'll regret. I smiled at my computer screen. No, Father. You'll be sorry you ever thought you could let me down. My dad's warning didn't concern me. Now what were they going to do? I had previously blocked them at every opportunity after they attempted to defraud me, hack my accounts, and lie to my entire family. Then, however, a lovely thing occurred. I received a call from Aunt Lisa 2 days later. She virtually laughed as she remarked, "You won't believe this." "Oh, tell me, please." Knowing I was going to appreciate this, I smiled. "Well," she said, "after you banned them, your parents supposedly tried to execute another prank because they were so broke." I leaned closer. "What were they doing?" Lisa let out a sigh. "To get money, they went to Grandma." I started laughing. "Grandmother? The woman who despises pampered people and was raised in extreme poverty." "What was it?" she said. Knowing it wasn't good for them, I had previously requested. Lisa gave a snort. "Oh, she went crazy. In order to preserve Emily's trip, my mother apparently pretended to be weeping when she arrived and begged Grandma for money. She sobbed as she related how I had destroyed everything and cruelly left the family. Grandma, too. She didn't believe it at all." I said. She said, "Let me clarify. You were caught stealing from Sophia, and now you want me to help you?" Lisa chuckled. "Then I was dying," Lisa added. She threw them out of the house after calling them outright thieves. I almost toppled over my couch. "Hold on." I wheezed when she said that they were thieves. "Oh," Lisa said. She then gave the entire family a call and revealed the truth. I let out a gasp. "No. Yes, indeed. Now everyone is aware." Lisa hung up, and I looked at my phone. On social media, Mom's pals had unfollowed her. Chats and family groups were exploding. The fact that my parents attempted to defraud their own daughter infuriated many. After that, Emily texted me. "Emily? What the hell? Grandma, did you tell her?" "Me? Not at all. When Mom ran her mouth, she did. How are things going for you?" She didn't respond. Then a second message appeared. "I hope you're content, Mom. This family is devastated because of you. You sit there and chuckle at our suffering as we struggle. How could you harm us like this?" I give an eye roll. "Me? Your attempt to take from me was not ruined by me. Savor the results. Well, blocked." Just when I thought there was no more hope for the night, my dad left me a voicemail 1 hour later. I played it after hesitating. "You must give me a call back immediately, Sophia. It's critical." I didn't return the call. Rather, I looked at my email and it was there. A bank alert. When my parents attempted to apply for a credit card in my name, they were turned down. Better yet, the bank had blacklisted them, meaning they were not being accepted for anything because I had already reported them for fraud. I grinned. Checkmate. I felt free for the first time in years, Mom and Dad. No more stolen money, no more guilt trips, no more tidying up the mess left by my family, just tranquility. When the bank closed my parents, I assumed they would give up. Naturally, though, they were still capable of one more outburst. Emily arrived at my flat 3 days later. She pushed by me and rushed inside before I could even respond. Our lives were devastated by you. Like a spoilt child, she yelled and threw herself upon my couch. I pressed myself up against the wall. How did you interrupt us? Grandma hated us because of you. Mom and Dad are now impoverished, and they are being treated like criminals by everyone. I arched an eyebrow. How come? Emily snarled. This may have been resolved by you. I chuckled. What should be fixed? Your complimentary getaway. The credit scams or the $50,000 theft? She folded her arms. You'd come crawling back, Mom said. I grinned. Yes, you know what? She was mistaken. Emily frowned. You're self-centered. Poor. Feeling envious? I raised a finger. Be cautious what you say next. She gave me a scowl. You're a bee. I pulled the door open. Leave now. Emily's lips closed abruptly. You're finished, I said. Dad and Mom are finished. You are no longer superior to me. Do you want cash? You'll find employment. She scrunched her face in fear. I'm looking for a job. I smiled. Indeed, Emily, like everyone else. She seemed utterly repulsed. Then, one final sigh. She walked out the door, stomping past me. Behind her, I slammed it shut. Weeks went by. My parents made a final, desperate effort to win the family's sympathy. Nobody purchased it. Playing the victim, Emily lost her temper online. However, many turned against her after learning that she had attempted to steal from me. They fled a fraud with their reputations damaged and nobody left. At last, they vanished. And me? I preserved my freedom, my quiet, and my money. I was really very free for the first time in my life. And I didn't turn around.